Someone once said, we'd better pay attention to the future because that's where we're going to spend the rest of our lives. Yet too often those are just words to many people who end up finding themselves fixed almost entirely on the present. Or they dream about the future, but they do nothing about it. And so their dreams seem at best elusive and at worst unattainable. But to believe that about the future is a mistake. Hello, my name is Joel Barker. And we've come here to talk about why positive visions of the future are so important, even essential, to nations and organizations, to corporations and communities, to individuals young and old, to each and every one of us who want to make a difference in the world. I began my study of the future in 1973, just as the Vietnam War was ending. OPEC had taken control of energy pricing. Watergate was beginning. And inflation was soaring beyond control around the world. For many people, from corporate leaders to the person on Main Street, the problems of the present seemed so overwhelming that it seemed pointless to think about the future. And yet, in the midst of all that turbulence and pessimism, I came upon the works of three scholars who showed me that having exactly the opposite attitude, a positive one, was much wiser. Each of these scholars, in his own way, convinced me that it is essential that we think about, dream about, and ultimately envision our own futures, especially in the really tough times. In fact, I believe that having a positive vision of the future is perhaps the most forceful motivator for change that you and I possess. We are now going to take a journey to see how these ideas fit together and to see how we can use these ideas to make our own organizations, our own families, our own lives richer and more fulfilling. We begin our journey here because of the Dutch scholar Fred Polak, who wrote a book entitled The Image of the Future. Polak was intensely interested in the relationship between nations and their image of the future. He asked a kind of chicken and egg question. Is a nation's positive image of its future the consequence of the nation's success, or is the nation's success a consequence of its positive image of its future? To find an answer to that question, he read the literature of many nations, both ancient and modern, to see how positively they wrote about their future and how well they lived up to their expectations. What he found is perfectly symbolized here in Athens at the Parthenon. The Parthenon was first a vision in the mind of the architect. So too did the Greeks envision the future of their culture. How did this all happen? Well, the Greeks began with dreams, but then they changed those dreams into something much more powerful: vision. Vision is the result of dreams in action. What Polak found in his research was that significant vision preceded significant success. In example after example, he saw the same pattern emerge. First, a compelling image of the future was offered by leaders. Then that image was shared with their community, and they agreed to support it. Then together, acting in concert, they made the vision a reality. It was true here in Greece 2,500 years ago. And it was the same for Rome, and for Spain, for Venice, for England, for France. It was the same pattern for the United States of America. And even today, we can see the power of vision sweeping across the world, from Eastern Europe to the Pacific Rim. What is particularly interesting to me in Polak's research is the fact that many of the nations, as they began their climb to greatness, did not have the right resources, or the critical population base, or an obvious strategic advantage. In fact, they succeeded against the odds. What they did have was a profound vision of their own future, and that is the key ingredient. Not the only one, but the first and most important. Nations with vision are powerfully enabled. Nations without vision are at risk. I used to be a school teacher, and after I read Fred Pollock, I realized that what he was saying for nations was equally true for children. Children are profoundly affected by their vision of the future. From my own experience, I had seen a pattern. My very best students always knew where they were going, what they were going to do with their life. When I read Benjamin Singer's scholarly work, The Future-Focused Rolling Edge, I found that my observations were strongly reinforced by a lot of research. The research summarized by Singer indicated that low-performance students had almost no sense of their future. Their focus was strictly short-term, and they believed the ability to shape their future was in the hands of fate. They were personally powerless. The research also indicated that successful students had a much greater personal sense of control over their future, and they thought in time horizons of 5 to 10 years out. One thing in particular intrigued me about the research. In identifying the successful students, IQ and family background were not the key indicators of success. Some of the most successful students came from very difficult family and social situations and did not score well on the standard IQ tests. Some of the most unsuccessful students had genius IQs and came from the best of families. So, what was the key differentiator? Vision. What all the successful students shared was a profound and positive vision of their future. I can think of no better place to bring Singer's observations to life than to visit this elementary school, PS 121, in Harlem, in New York. Here in 1981, Eugene Lang came to give the commencement speech. He had graduated from PS 121 in 1933 and was now a successful, wealthy, self-made man. He had a lot of concern over the problems these children faced, and so he was planning to try to instill some hope in them. But as he sat on this platform and looked across the faces of those sixth graders and their family and their friends, he realized that words alone would have little meaning. So on the spot, he changed the speech. And the changes in his speech would change the lives of those children forever. He began by making a personal connection to the children by telling them how he had been in Washington, D.C. when Martin Luther King had given his famous I Have a Dream speech. Then he said to those sixth graders, "Everyone must have a dream. Your dream is important. It can be your future, and education is the key to that future." He spoke to their journey through junior high and then senior high school and then on to college. But when he said college, he realized that college must seem unattainable to most of these kids. So he said to them, "And don't think for a minute you can't go to college, because you can." And then, with the family and friends listening, he promised those sixth graders that he personally would provide each and every one of them who graduated from high school a college scholarship. Here were these sixth graders thinking that they could not expect to go to college, and all of a sudden, this promise. Mr. Lang sat down to the cheers of the audience, but he knew that money alone was not going to make this happen. He would have to provide a pathway to the promise. So almost immediately, in addition to giving his money, Mr. Lang created a support structure of the teachers and parents and community to work with these students to make sure that they would realize their marvelous vision. From past history of this school, you would have been able to predict that of those sixth graders who graduated from this school, only 25% would have graduated from high school. And of that 25%, almost no one would have gone on to college. But thanks to Mr. Lang and the support he and the community provided, 48 out of 52 of those students graduated from high school, and of that 48, 40 went on to college. Here at PS 121, in the heart of Harlem, we see perfectly illustrated what Benjamin Singer wrote about. The power of a child's vision with the help of the community to overcome history and economics, to motivate that child to extraordinary achievements. So, when we ask our children, what are you going to be when you grow up? We are helping them to think about something that is very important. Never treat their answers as trivial, even if they change your mind every week. We listen to show our children that their dreams of the future are significant, and our interest in their dreams builds their confidence and ability to shape their own future. For nations, for children, we see the same pattern, the same power, the power of vision. This is Auschwitz. It seems a strange place to come to talk about vision. During World War II, millions of people, mostly Jews, but Poles and Russians and Gypsies too, were put to death in camps like this. The reason we have come here is to examine the importance of vision under the worst possible conditions. It was here that the third scholar who influenced me made his discoveries. His name was Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist in Vienna. He had a good practice, lived the good life. He was Jewish. When World War II broke out, he was rounded up by the Nazis along with thousands of others and brought in freight cars to this hell on earth. When he arrived, Frankl set 3 goals for himself. 1, to survive. 2, to use his medical skills and help where he could. And 3, to try and learn something. Imagine that, to try and learn something amidst the Holocaust. Well, Frankl succeeded in all 3 of his goals. And after the war, he went back to Vienna and wrote his now classic book, Man's Search for Meaning, in which he illuminated what he learned. In his book, Frankl acknowledged that the majority of prisoners were executed soon after they arrived. What Frankl focused on in his writings were those who, like himself, were instead put to work under the most horrible of conditions. Millions died. Yet among those who survived, Viktor Frankl found a common thread, a trait essential to their survival. All of those who made it through had something significant yet to do in their future. Let me repeat that. All of those who made it through had something significant yet to do in their future. And here we see the pattern again, the power of a vision of the future to help overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Let me illustrate with one of Frankl's stories. 2 men were going to commit suicide. It was a common occurrence here in the camp. Their friends literally saved their lives by reminding them of their future. For the one, it was his child whom he adored and who was waiting for him in a foreign country. For the other, it was a thing, not a person. This man was a scientist and had written a series of books which still needed to be finished. His work could not be done by anyone else. And once they were reminded of their responsibilities to their future, they accepted it and were empowered to continue and survive. It worked for Frankl, too. He writes, almost in tears from pain, I kept thinking of the endless little problems of our miserable life. What would there be to eat tonight? If a piece of sausage came as an extra ration, should I exchange it for a piece of bread? Should I trade my last cigarette, which was left from a bonus I received a fortnight ago, for a bowl of soup? How could I get a piece of wire to replace the fragment which served as one of my shoelaces? Who could help me to obtain work in camp instead of undertaking this horribly long daily march?
I became disgusted with the state of affairs which compelled me daily and hourly to think of only such trivial things. I forced my thoughts to turn to another subject. Suddenly I saw myself standing on the platform of a well-lit, warm and pleasant lecture room. In front of me sat an attentive audience on comfortable upholstered chairs. I was giving a lecture on the psychology of the concentration camp. By this method I succeeded somehow in rising above the situation, above the suffering of the moment, and he observed them as if they were now of the past. Frankl's message is clear. It is essential for you, for me, to have something significant yet to do, to have a positive vision of our future, because that is what gives meaning to life. Frankl wrote, "It is a peculiarity of man that he can only live by looking to the future." And this is his salvation in even the most difficult moments of his existence. We have come here to share a metaphor. You see, in our lives, we all have rivers to cross. On the other shore is our future. Sometimes the river is calm and the crossing is easy, but other times the river is turbulent, full of unpredictability. Too often during these turbulent times, we try to cross the river just by jumping in and starting to swim. We find ourselves swept away in the current, washed downstream. We hope that where we end up on the other side will be good enough. But there is a better way to cross the river, and a vision of our future. Then, when we see our vision beckoning to us with its positive power, it will reach like a rope back across the river to give us something to hang on to as we step into the water. Now the river's going to grab at us, try to break our grip, try to carry us away from our destination. It takes work to hang on. We have to pull with our own muscles, think with our own minds, commit with our own hearts. No one else can do the work for us. And while there is no guarantee that we will arrive at our goals, this rope, extended from the power of our vision, offers us our best connection to the future. And if we grab it firmly in our hands, then we will be ready to take the plunge and venture toward tomorrow. We have looked at nations that have risen from nothing to world shakers. We've examined the research on the key ingredients that make children successful. We have visited a place where people were put through the most difficult conditions that human beings could be put through and survive. And all of these have a common thread: the power of a positive vision of the future. Now, I bet I know what you're all thinking. Where is the corporate discussion? If it works for nations, and it works for kids, and it works for adults, does it work for organizations? Of course. In fact, this discussion is fundamental to human nature at all scales. Organizations are one of the best places to see this illustrated because they have the proper size and complexity to really use vision's power. Think about organizations, beginning and mature, profit and non-profit, who are doing amazingly well, and I'll bet they're being driven by a vision. Let me give you some examples. Boeing, for instance, with its vision of a world-spanning huge plane that became the 747. Or Sony, with its vision of entertainment for everyone, the Walkman. French Telecom, the French telephone company that decided it would be the best phone company in Europe. Or maybe it was the worst. IBM, that bet the corporation on its vision of the 360 series mainframe computer. Milliken & Company with its relentless pursuit of excellence. The Salvation Army, a non-profit group that's had a 100-year vision to help the poor and the destitute.
vision is not to be just the best car company in the world, but the biggest. So, question, what makes up great vision? First, let me tell you something that isn't part of the vision. In fact, it's a mistake to have it a part of the vision. Vision is never expressed in just financial numbers. Those numbers are always a consequence of a vision achieved. So, what are the key ingredients? Well, first, visions need to be developed by leaders. Visions are not created by the masses. Now, good leaders talk to their people and listen to their people. By the way, they listen and explore the world as well. But it is the role of leadership, not of followers, to take all that input and focus it and bring it into a coherent, powerful vision. Second, visions of the leaders must be shared with their team, and the team must agree to support it. If you have that sharing and that support, you then have created the vision community. For organizations, the sharing, by the way, creates agreement on direction. And once you have direction agreement, it in fact improves your decision making significantly, because every decision can be measured against the vision's direction. The vision community must act together to bring the vision to reality. Third, a vision, in order to be successful, must be comprehensive and detailed. Generalities just won't do. We want to be number one in the marketplace. We want to be a world-class company. We want to be the most innovative in our industry. Those are nice words, but they don't make a vision. To have a vision, we must know how and when and why and what with enough precision so that each member in the vision community can find his or her significant and important place in the vision. Everyone must know how they are going to contribute and participate. Fourth, vision must be positive and inspiring. A vision should have reach. It should challenge each and every one of us to grow substantially, to stretch their skills, to reach beyond their ordinary reach. A vision must be worth the effort. When you create your vision, it is better to err on the side of too great a vision than not great enough.
Joel, it seems to me, I like what you're saying about vision, but you haven't mentioned values anywhere.
That's a good question. Someone once said to me, in turbulent times like what we're living in now, the only thing that'll get you through is your values. I suggested there was another way to think about that. Values are the way you measure the rightness of your direction. You see, without values, you might in fact create a vision that's immoral or unethical. Values protect you from making that mistake. But values, even though they are essential to vision, cannot give you direction. Only vision can do that. It is the role of vision to determine your destination. Leader initiated, shared and supported, comprehensive and detailed, positive and inspiring. You get all those put together, you've got your vision community. Once you have the vision community, now you are empowered. There's a story I'd like to share with you. It was inspired by the writings of Loren Eiseley. Eiseley was a very special person because he combined the best of two cultures. He was a scientist and a poet. And from those two perspectives, he wrote insightfully and beautifully about our world and our role in it. Once upon a time, there was a wise man, much like Eiseley himself, who used to go to the ocean to do his writing. He had a habit of walking on the beach before he began his work. One day, he was walking along the shore. As he looked down the beach, he saw a human figure moving like a dancer. He smiled to himself to think of someone who would dance to the day. So he began to walk faster to catch up. As he got closer, he saw that it was a young man, and the young man wasn't dancing, but instead he was reaching down to the shore, picking up something, and very gently throwing it into the ocean. As he got closer, he called out, "Good morning, what are you doing?" The young man paused, looked up, and replied, "Throwing starfish in the ocean." "I guess I should have asked, why are you throwing starfish in the ocean?" "The sun is up, and the tide is going out. And if I don't throw them in, they'll die." "But young man, don't you realize that there are miles and miles of beach and starfish all along it? You can't possibly make a difference." The young man listened politely, and bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it into the sea, past the breaking waves. He made a difference for that one. His response surprised the man. He was upset. He didn't know how to reply. So instead he turned away and walked back to the cottage to begin his writings. All day long as he wrote, the image of that young man haunted him. He tried to ignore it, but the vision persisted. Finally, late in the afternoon, he realized that he, the scientist, he, the poet, had missed the essential nature of the young man's actions. Because he realized that what the young man was doing was choosing not to be an observer in the universe and watch it pass by, but was choosing to be an actor in the universe and make a difference. He was embarrassed. That night he went to bed, troubled. When morning came, he awoke, knowing that he had to do something. So he got up, put on his clothes, went to the beach, and found the young man. And with him, he spent the rest of the morning throwing starfish in the ocean. You see, what that young man's actions represents is something that is special in each and every one of us. We have all been gifted with the ability to make a difference. And if we can, like that young man, become aware of that gift, we gain, through the strength of our visions, the power to shape the future. And that is your challenge. That is my challenge. We must each find our starfish. And if we throw our stars wisely and well, I have no questions that the 21st century is going to be a wonderful place. Remember, vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes the time. Vision with action can change the world.